What if somewhere beneath your feet, in layers older than memory, lie the fragments of minds that once asked the same questions we ask tonight? The thought comes to us quietly, the way all profound questions do, not with fanfare but with the gentle persistence of water finding cracks in stone. We walk across Earth's surface, believing we know its story, that we understand the rhythm of rise and fall, birth and extinction, that has shaped every continent and carved every valley. But what if we're wrong? What if the ground beneath us holds secrets we've never learned to read? Tonight, as you settle into the soft embrace of curiosity, consider this. Our entire recorded history, every empire, every discovery, every moment of human triumph and tragedy spans roughly 10,000 years. It feels vast to us, this sweep of time from the first cities to the space stations circling overhead. Yet to the Earth, 10,000 years is barely a whisper. It's the time it takes a mountain to shed a few inches of stone, for a river to carve a slightly deeper bend, for ice to advance and retreat just once in the endless dance of climate. In the grand symphony of geological time, our entire civilization is a single note, played so briefly that it might easily be lost in the larger melody. We think of ourselves as the first to wonder about the stars, the first to split atoms, the first to leave footprints on worlds beyond our own. This assumption feels natural, perhaps even necessary. How else could we make sense of our place in the universe, except as its newest experiment in consciousness? That the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, and for most of that incomprehensible stretch of time, it has been capable of supporting complex life. Multicellular organisms have existed for over 1 billion years. Intelligence, in forms we recognize, has been possible for hundreds of millions. So here's the question that haunts the deepest hours of night in all that vast expanse of time, with all those opportunities for mind to emerge from matter, for awareness to blossom from chemistry, for intelligence to organize itself into something we might recognize as civilization. Are we really the first to wonder if we're alone? The fossil record preserves only the tiniest fraction of life that has existed. Soft tissues decay, leaving no trace. Even bones and shells require precise conditions to mineralize into stone, and most of those conditions have existed for only brief geological moments. What we call the fossil record is more like a scattered collection of pages torn from an enormous library, with whole chapters, perhaps whole volumes, missing entirely. If creatures lived and died without leaving fossils, they might as well never have existed at all, at least from our perspective peering back through deep time. But intelligence leaves different traces than simple life. It reorganizes matter in ways that nature, left to itself, rarely achieves. It creates patterns, structures, chemical signatures that stand out against the background of purely biological processes. Our own civilization has already begun this process. We've altered the chemistry of the atmosphere, created synthetic materials that will persist for millennia, carved geometric patterns into the landscape that will remain visible from space long after we're gone. These are the kinds of signatures that might survive the erosion of deep time, compressed and transformed, but still recognizable to eyes that know what to look for. The question isn't whether such signatures exist, it's whether we've learned to see them. For most of human history, we interpreted geological formations as purely natural phenomena, the result of volcanic activity, tectonic movement, erosion, and time. Only recently have we begun to recognize that some patterns in rock and mineral might tell different stories. Only in the last few decades have we developed tools sensitive enough to detect chemical anomalies that might indicate ancient industrial activity, to recognize artificial structures that have been disguised by millions of years of geological process. And so we return to the question that brought us here, the question that seems to grow larger the more quietly we consider it. What if we're not the first? What if the Earth has supported other experiments in consciousness, other attempts at understanding, other civilizations that looked up at the same stars and wondered about their place in the cosmos? What if some of them succeeded in ways we haven't imagined, or failed in ways we haven't yet learned to recognize? These aren't idle fantasies born from science fiction or wishful thinking. They're questions emerging from the intersection of geology and humility, from our growing understanding of deep time and our growing awareness of how little we actually know about our planet's deepest past. Every year we discover new ways that life has surprised us, new forms of existence that challenge our assumptions about what's possible. Every year we find evidence that Earth's history is stranger and more complex than we previously imagined. The silence that surrounds these questions isn't empty, it's full of possibility, thick with the weight of stories that might be waiting to be discovered, pressed between layers of stone like flowers in the pages of an ancient book. And yet, if this much can be hidden in the deep archives of geological time, what else might we have forgotten to remember? Every rock formation whispers of duration beyond comprehension, yet somewhere within this geological symphony, could there be notes that don't belong to nature alone? We move slowly now, feeling the weight of the past pressing gently around us, the vastness of eras folded into every grain of stone. It's as if time itself has folded back on itself, creating layers not just of sediment but of memory, resting quietly beneath our feet. Imagine the shoreline of an ancient sea where sand met water millions of years ago. Under that tranquil facade, enormous forces pressed and melded grains into stone, while tides whispered secrets we can barely begin to hear. What if those secrets are not only the natural history of Earth, but thoughts and traces of beings who might have peered into the same changing sky, wondering about their own place in the endless passage of days? Could it be that the very stones we touch carry the silent language of civilizations lost to time's relentless tide? We know that erosion wears away mountains and hills, scraping away what once was, yet each layer that remains is a chapter, a fragile manuscript written by the slow hand of geology. These pages bear chemical hints, isotopic imprints that tell of ancient climates and atmospheres, records that stretch beyond the span of human memory. But what if in the intricate dance between time and erosion, some traces were left not accidentally but purposefully, an encrypted message cast into the vast archive of rock? The concept of deep time humbles us. Our sense of duration is tethered to a human lifespan. A few decades, maybe a century, yet the Earth measures time in eons and epochs, where millions of years pass like breaths, brief and still. The stars themselves travel great distances over these intervals, but on Earth, the slow accumulation of rock and sediment is the dominant chronicle. This slow story invites us to wonder if intelligence once navigated these vast epochs, shaping their environment so delicately that their work became indistinguishable from nature's own sculpture. Consider the curious anomalies scientists sometimes find, unusual mineral formations, isotopic ratios that defy known geological processes, structures buried beneath layers that seem fabricated rather than formed. Could these be the hidden footprints of a mind that lived long before ours, mind that left behind not monuments or cities but subtle rearrangements of the Earth's very fabric, designs so subtle and ancient that our own instruments struggle to make them visible? We grasp for comparisons in our own recent history. Human construction often leaves a clear mark, roads, buildings, machine remnants. But as time envelops these creations, entropy works tirelessly to unravel them, scattering atoms far and wide. Over millions of years, almost no artificial structure could survive intact. Yet what if the darkness beneath our gaze hides artifacts transformed so profoundly that we fail to recognize them as artifacts at all? Could it be that some of the world's most perplexing geological formations are not the work of wind or water alone, but the ghostly outline of intentional design, something crafted with an intelligence so alien to our own that it has passed unnoticed, a shape mistaken for coincidence or chance? The very process of plate tectonics subducts continents, swallowing oceanic plates and recycling the Earth's surface into the mantle. In this ceaseless recycling could entire chapters of history be folded away, impossible to retrieve but still echoed faintly in the isotopic signature of ancient rocks. And yet, how do we listen to these echoes? How do we distinguish the quiet murmur of a forgotten civilization from the vast natural chorus of Earth's ever-shifting surface? our tools grow sharper and more sensitive, probing deeper with isotope geochemistry, magnetic resonance, and atomic scale analysis. Each discovery teases open the door to possibilities we once thought impossible, inviting us to imagine the layers beneath our feet as more than mere stone, but as an archive of life, curiosity, and perhaps consciousness. We hold this thought lightly, as a whisper in a vast cave, a sound that may or may not be there, depending on where and how we listen. And as we peer into the dim archives of deep time, we're reminded that memory itself is fragile, subject to loss, to distortion, and to erasure by forces far beyond our control. We gather fragments and piece together stories, always aware that the full tapestry remains just out of reach. Maybe, just maybe, somewhere in the sediment lies a message, a trace meant for eyes that time has yet to bring forth. A memory deliberately encoded in stone, waiting patiently like dust in sunbeams, catching light only when the moment is right. And yet, if the stone itself can hold such secrets, what else might it be hiding? And yet, if the stone itself can hold such secrets, what else might it be hiding? As we lean closer to these ancient whispers, we sense the memory embedded deep within mineral veins, isotopic traces as delicate as the fading fingerprints of forgotten breaths. Layers upon layers, sediment folding into sediment, the story becomes harder to unravel, tangled with the slow entropy that gently unweaves meaning from matter. Could these silent witnessings be the trace of minds that once rose and vanished, their own stories swallowed not by time, but by the ceaseless motion of Earth's restless bones? We think of the ocean floor, vast, silent, and shifting endlessly beneath currents we cannot see but can feel in the slow pulse of the planet's heartbeat. Every century, entire expanses of crust are consumed, drawn beneath tectonic plates to vanish into the mantle like ashes in a cosmic fire. Could it be that the remnants of ancient civilizations lie not buried beneath deserts or jungles, but forever lost in this great subduction, erased by the cycles of Earth's digestive silence? Time here is unfathomable. Geological epochs blur into one another, memories folding like waves, retreating into a vast ocean of oblivion. It is not only the erosion of stone that erases, but the recycling of the very earth beneath our feet. The surface we walk on is transient, ever remade, repurposed, reclaimed by forces that neither hurry nor delay, but simply endure. What remains then when erosion and subduction have claimed all visible traces? Perhaps chemical signatures linger, faint as a breath, festooned with isotope ratios reflective of atmospheres changed by the breath and ambition of beings long past. We measure carbon shifts, oxygen cycles, elements rearranged by fires consumed, skies altered by innovations lost. Could these subtle changes speak as a language, a coded memory sewn into the planet's very skin? Could the ice cores and sediments archive the footprints not just of animals or plants, but of thought itself? And when we look deeper, beyond the stratified songs of rock and ice to the fossils and traces embedded there, we ask, what does fossilization preserve? Bones tell us of bodies once alive, shells recall the tide of ancient seas, but could the mind, with all its ephemeral electric murmurs, leave behind anything tangible? Are some fossil silences themselves a form of presence, a trace of consciousness encoded in reverberations we have only just begun to learn how to find? The philosopher's question sharpens here. What is memory but a pattern, a shape formed in the interplay of presence and absence? And yet memory is vulnerable, always slipping through the cracks of entropy's steady seep. Could entire civilizations be forgotten, not because they never existed, but because their memories were scattered, dissolved by forces that reshape and consume over millennia? Could there be ruins beneath layers so old they seem elemental, indistinguishable from the rock itself? Might there be artifacts hidden in plain sight, mountains shaped by intention rather than chance, mineral formations patterned with purpose that we see but cannot decode? The Earth's surface is a palimpsest, a record overwritten countless times. We read what we can, but much remains a silent mystery, waiting for the right question or the right tool. As we explore these possibilities, we are reminded of the limits of perception, not only of time, but of ourselves and what we consider real. The vastness of deep time humbles the ego, making us wonder if the boundary between nature and artifice has always been porous, if the line drawn between the natural world and civilization is an illusion held by fleeting minds on a brief speck of dust. So maybe, what if deep time is not just a story of decay and loss, but also a library of echoes, histories layered like sediment, waiting to be heard beneath the roar of the present? Perhaps the silence is not absence but a kind of presence itself, an invitation to listen more closely, to allow patience to guide us through the slow murmur of forgotten epochs. And yet, if such memories slip through our grasp, if the deep past hides itself so well, how will we ever know? Could it be that our own curiosity, our very act of searching, is part of the unfolding story, a thread that connects us to those who came before and those who may come after? In this gentle unfolding, the question remains open, its answer shimmering on the horizon of sleep and waking, invitation and wonder. And yet, if such memories slip through our grasp, if the deep past hides itself so well, how will we ever know? As dust settles over forgotten landscapes, as erosion silently rewrites the contours of time, we ponder the fate of matter turned machine. There is a profound, slow poetry in the idea that metal, once pulsing with purpose and precision, could one day become indistinguishable from stone, its sharp edges softened by patience and decay. Not because metal is fragile, but because entropy is relentless. Not because machines are ephemeral, but because the earth itself is a patient sculptor that transforms all things, reforming the bleached and bent into new shapes, new stories. Imagine a future archaeologist, millions of years hence, sifting through the mineral layers that drape our present, attempting to discern nothing more than age-old mysteries, and perhaps stumbling across a shard of something unnatural, something unmistakably shaped, far older than any known civilization. What would they think? Would the subtle geochemical signature of our industry linger like a faint breath, a whisper trapped in the crystalline lattice of quartz, or trapped in the isotopes deep within the bedrock? Could they, from such faint traces, begin to piece together the story of a civilization that once dreamed, built, and vanished? We understand fossilization as the slow replacement of organic material with stone, a process where life's fleeting forms are reborn as enduring monuments. But what if the fossil record is more than bones and shells? What if our own lost civilizations long before us left behind not only echoes in stone, but artifacts transformed into something we mistake for natural rock? Could the great clays and limestones, the layered shales of ancient seas, be repositories for the traces of forgotten mechanisms, technofossils quietly buried in geological time? Entropy does not discriminate. It reclaims swiftly and surely, unraveling the neat order of machines and monuments, scattering their atoms until all that remains is dust indistinguishable from silt or sand. Yet within this universal decay, some forms persist longer, densities that resist the slow dance of decay. Perhaps these densities hold secrets that our current science can only glimpse, but not yet fully understand. Could concentrated metals, alloys unknown to us, or materials created from elements artificially assembled, linger like ghostly fingerprints beneath the sediment? Consider the immense timescales of plate tectonics and ocean subduction, processes that consume continents and engulf their histories in flame and pressure deep under the mantle. The Earth's surface is not static, but a vast, slow-moving manuscript continually erased and rewritten. Could colossal industrial remnants, buried in the crust, be swallowed entirely, their stories yet to be uncovered by future geologists? How would we recognize these swallowed memories if we ever did? Our tools grasp at these possibilities, using isotopic analysis, magnetic mapping, deep drilling, but what they find often raises more questions than answers. We discover isotopic anomalies, unexplained shifts in atmospheric compositions preserved in ice and sediment cores, chemical compositions that defy known natural cycles. Could these be the signatures of technological worlds long forgotten, their atmospheres altered by the exhaust of ancient industries? And as we peer through the haze of forgotten epochs, we also confront our own fragility. Will our monuments, our machines, our creations last just long enough to be studied, or will they dissolve quietly into the vast reservoir of time, leaving behind only chemical ghosts and the eternal question of our existence? The slow poetry of entropy whispers a reminder that all things eventually return to dust, not because dust is destiny, but because the earth is a patient artist, weaving new patterns from the remnants of the past. Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps somewhere beneath layers yet unexplored lie the remains of technologies transformed into stone and mineral. Maybe the Earth's relentless processes are not just instruments of decay, but also the custodians of an ancient memory, a memory encrypted so deeply in the fabric of rock and metal that we have yet to learn the language. And yet, if this much can dissolve, if even the sharpest technologies can become dust and silence, what might be lost forever? What stories have we already allowed to vanish beneath our feet? To wonder is to listen, and to listen is to imagine that somewhere in the Earth's deep chambers, beyond the reach of time, the echoes of vanished civilizations wait with the patience of stone. And yet, if this much can dissolve, if even the sharpest technologies can become dust and silence, what might be lost forever? The Earth has witnessed great upheavals, rhythms of destruction and rebirth pulsing through deep time like heartbeats measured in millions of years. The Permian, that dark chapter etched into stone, is known as the Great Dying, a vast farewell that erased most life's colors, leaving behind echoes of silence and shadow. But what if that silence is more than just absence? What if it bears the faint imprint of ancient intelligence, a story written not only in bones and ash, but in the traces of vanished industries and forgotten fires? The Permian extinction was a symphony of endings, a shifting of the world's balance framed by volcanic fury, changing seas and choking atmospheres. Yet within this geological crescendo we might wonder, could there have been other causes, subtle and deliberate forces woven into the fabric of extinction? Could industries long vanished have changed the air, raised the heat, reshaped the oceans in ways that echo through fossils and isotopes? We think of extinction as a sudden rupture, a break in the delicate dance of life, but extinction is also a slow erosion, a gradual fading that wears away histories, memories, entire worlds. Could it be that civilizations like species rise and fall not only by natural fate, but through their own touch on the tangled systems of Earth? Could ancient minds, caught in cycles of growth and decay, have unwittingly written their own exits into the deep record? The volcanic traps of Siberia billowed ash and gas, blanketing the sky and searing the surface. Layers of sediment tell us of ocean acidification and acid rains, of ecosystems shattered and reshaped beneath indifferent stars. Yet might these tragic scenes also carry fingerprints, chemical signatures of alteration beyond volcanic force, traces of industry, fuel, or transformation wrought by beings unknown to us? Within these frozen moments in the strata, preserved by conditions that defy decay, we glimpse the thresholds of planetary change, the isotopic shifts. The unusual ratios of carbon and sulfur hint at disruptions carried by more than natural means. Is it possible that these are the faint echoes of technological atmospheres, the breath of machines, long silent but never fully erased? The rhythms of deep time remind us that entropy is both destroyer and liberator, dissolving order yet allowing for new beginnings, sometimes from the ashes of what was lost. Perhaps the artifacts we seek are not obelisks or monuments, but altered chemistry, a record written in invisible ink onto the air and stone. How would we read these marks if our minds were not yet attuned to their language? We imagine now the sky itself, heavy with smoke and haze, a shroud that muted the sunlight and cooled the earth, followed by storms that cleansed and reshaped. These forces, while brutal, are part of a cycle that renews and resets life's canvas. What if the fires that cracked the sky were kindled not just by volcanic rage, but by the ambitions of civilizations whose stories have been swallowed by time. As we watch the slow unraveling of these ancient tapestries, we hold space for uncertainty, for the possibility that the Earth's deep memory includes chapters we have yet to discover, lines written in stone and gas, shaped by minds as curious and fragile as our own. Could the great dying be not only an ending, but a whisper of a world trying to speak through its own collapse? And yet, if history can be this easily reshaped, what else might our future look like when cast into the deep sediment of time? What echoes will humanity leave behind, and will they be read as warnings, or simply as faint traces lost to the steady hum of the planet's eternal song? The questions fold softly into the dark like waves vanishing on a distant shore, inviting us to listen and wonder without demand or answer. And yet, if history can be this easily reshaped, what else might we have forgotten? As dust settles on ancient landscapes, layers of ice preserve the breath of long-extinct atmospheres, holding within them the soft stories of winds that blew before humans ever wondered about the air they breathed. In these icy time capsules, trapped bubbles of old air speak quietly across epochs, waiting patiently for us to listen. Could those fragile spheres hold whispers not only of natural climate cycles, but of interventions deep in time, exhalations of forgotten civilizations that tinkered with the sky itself? The chemistry of ice cores reveals rhythms of glacial advance and retreat, cycles of warmth and chill woven into a slow cadence that has kept Earth's life in uneasy balance. But sometimes within this ancient script, we find anomalies, sudden shifts in carbon isotopes, unexplained spikes of greenhouse gases that rise and fall like faint heartbeats in the atmosphere's memory. Are these signs purely natural, or do they hint at something more? Could these be the traces of early planetary engineering, echoes of minds reaching into the atmosphere to shape their world? Oceans, too, store memory. Deep in sediment layers beneath the waves, isotopes record changes in temperature, salinity, and acidity, marking epochs when seas rose and fell, chemistry shifted, and ecosystems transformed. Could the layers of the ocean floor bear the imprints of unseen forces, currents altered by machines, chemical signatures of industrial processes lost beneath water and time's patient wait? We imagine the slow, steady consumption of matter, how entropy unfolds invisibly but irresistibly, wearing away the remembrances etched in stone and water alike. Fossilization captures the form of ancient life, but the faint echoes of atmosphere and ocean chemistry might be the closest record of long-lost intention or activity, too fragile to fossilize in the usual sense, but preserved in other subtler ways. Silence drapes over these frozen and submerged memories, the silence of a world patiently recording secrets that defy quick revelation. Memory isn't only held in bones or stones, the very air and water themselves might be repositories for histories written in isotopes and molecules, codes woven into cycles of evaporation, precipitation, and flow. And so we ask again, what if the legacy of forgotten civilizations isn't locked away in grand ruins or towering monuments, but scattered invisibly through the changing chemistry of our planet? Could it be possible that deep within this silent archive, there exists a planetary memory waiting to be deciphered by minds patient enough to hear its slow symphony? Not because the past is always visible or accessible, but because the Earth holds a memory far beyond our usual senses. A layered story sounding out in the quiet between heartbeats, in the absence between ice crystals and ocean sediments. And yet, if this memory is so delicate, so vast, what else might be quietly slipping beyond our reach? And yet, if such secrets drift in silence, what other stories might history be hiding just beneath the surface, waiting for us to listen more closely? Beneath the familiar soil and forests, beneath cities and mountains, there lie quiet layers of absence, the archaeology of what is no longer, the faint traces of existence erased by time's gentle hand. What if memory itself is a kind of absence, a gap folded between presence and forgetting, woven into the very ground we walk upon? We imagine the Earth not as a blank slate, but as a palimpsest, a manuscript overwritten countless times by nature's endless cycles of growth and decay. Cities crumble, forests reclaim stones, rivers change their courses and bury the bones of hours upon layers of deep time. But what remains of us when all visible monuments fade? Could the archaeology of absence reveal not ruins, but impressions of civilizations in the erosion of places that once blossomed with life and invention? The slow movement of glaciers grinds away fragments of human history, while silent deserts swallow whole cities beneath layers of dust and sand. Deep rivers carry stones and stories from vanished homes to oceans unknown. Could these processes themselves be part of a grand forgetting, a natural entropy that erases with care so delicate it seems almost intentional? Fossils speak of life's relentless persistence and loss, but what of the fossil of memory? Could the absence of records, the gaps in our understanding, be as telling as the presence of artifacts and bones? The silence between inscriptions, the empty pages of history, do they also hold meaning? Our planet is not static, but a living archive, its surface continually reshaped by tectonic dance, weathering, and erosion. Could the very act of forgetting be folded into the story of Earth, a necessary counterpart to creation? Might loss itself be a kind of preservation, a slow reshaping that protects some secrets by hiding them in plain sight? And we, as curious minds, hover at the edge of these absences, peering into the void left by time's erasure. What if the past is less an unbroken narrative, and more a delicate breath, a pause between events, a space filled with silence and possibility? Could it be that what has vanished is also what invites us to wonder most deeply? Not because absence is emptiness, but because it is the shape of memory itself, fragile and shifting. And yet, if the archaeology of absence is so elusive, what might it teach us about the impermanence of knowledge, the fragility of civilizations, and the ever-turning rhythm of forgetting and remembering? And yet, if the archaeology of absence is so elusive, what might it teach us about the impermanence of knowledge, the fragility of civilizations, and the ever-turning rhythm of forgetting and remembering? We move now toward the rivers, those ancient veins that have carved the earth gently and persistently, flowing through the layers of time as if carrying secrets in their currents. Imagine the bends and forks of rivers as pages in a slow-moving story, their courses shifting with a patience that outlasts memory itself. Rivers erode and deposit, sculpting landscapes into new forms while erasing the old. They hide their histories in the sediments they carry, burying the remnants of civilizations beneath layers of silt and stone. What if the slow march of water has swallowed traces of minds and machines as easily as it has folded the earth over bones and leaves? Could currents that once bore the dreams of lost worlds now flow quietly, bearing only sediment and silence? We envision the way rivers meander through time, carrying away fragments of the past to unknown depths. The very stones worn smooth by water's touch could have once been shaped with intention, parts of structures remade by natural forces until their origin is forgotten. And yet, in the shapes of riverbeds, the patterns of erosion, might there be echoes, a subtle geometry that speaks of deliberate shaping, a faint signature on the landscape that awaits discovery? Oceanic subduction further deepens this mystery as plates slip beneath one another, dragging crust and sediment into fiery depths, erasing surface stories below a veil of mantle. In these hidden realms, whole chapters of Earth's memory are swallowed. Could ancient industries or cities be lost forever within these geological processes, their remnants transformed beyond recognition? What traces might remain, if any, of a world that once was now folded into the Earth's eternal cycle? Time slows in these deep processes. What feels like loss on a human scale is the rule of renewal in deep time. Sediments laid down in ancient seas become stone, mountains uplift and crumble, and continents drift like leaves on a slow cosmic river. Perhaps the stories we seek are not lost but transformed, rearranged so completely by the forces of nature that to understand them we must think beyond the familiar, beyond the visible and tangible. Could the quiet shaping of riverbeds and the swallowing embrace of ocean trenches be the Earth's way of rewriting its own history, erasing some chapters while preserving others in shadowed form? Could the sediment carried by water be both a covering and a message, a shroud concealing and a parchment waiting to be read, if only we knew how? As we listen to the flowing rivers and feel the pulse of slow tectonic movements, we find ourselves invited into a deeper meditation on time's mystery. What if history is less a fixed record and more a flowing, shifting presence, like the rivers themselves, always folding back on itself, always carrying echoes between the present and the vanished? And yet, if the rivers and plates are the pages on which history is written and rewritten, what secrets might still ripple beneath their surface, waiting for us to find, to remember, to wonder anew? And yet, if the rivers and plates are the pages on which history is written and rewritten, what secrets might still ripple beneath their surface, waiting for us to find, to remember, to wonder anew? As we turn from water and stone to the air itself, we find a subtle record woven into the chemistry of ancient atmospheres, a tapestry written in isotopes and gases, shifting gently like the breath of a planet, long before our eyes could trace its contours. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen all carry silent tales in their isotopes, variations that hold clues to ancient warmth and chill, to volcanic fury and serene calm. Sometimes these isotopic ratios shift suddenly, a riddle carved in space and time, hinting at changes that challenge our understanding of natural cycles. Could these shifts be the ghosts of forgotten fires, the chemical echoes of enormous transformations wrought by hands now vanished? We imagine a balance disturbed, atmospheres thickened or thinned by unknown causes, whether volcanic, cosmic, or perhaps the trace of ancient stewardship or folly. These chemical footprints linger in ice cores and sediment layers, subtle and faint, waiting for patient minds to decipher their language. They may tell of climate wars long past, atmospheres altered by minds beyond our reckoning, or of shifts wrought not by chance but by intention. The quiet presence of isotopes reminds us that the air we breathe is a living memory, layered and complex, holding not just the weight of gases, but the stories of epochs. Could some of those stories be records of worlds where intelligence shaped sky and climate, where ancient stewardship or hubris altered the very breath of the planet? And yet, how do we listen to such quiet histories? How do we distinguish between natural ebb and flow and the faint murmur of civilizations lost to deep time? Our instruments grow ever more refined, tracing the slight variations in isotopes, seeking patterns in the puzzle of the past. But in these whispers, certainty remains elusive, an invitation to question, to wonder, to remain open to the mysteries still held by the air itself. Maybe the truth is folded into the slow dance of atoms, the eternal recombination of elements, not in monuments or ruins, but in the very breath of the earth. Maybe the atmosphere remembers not through stories told loud, but through silence, shaped by the hidden hands of time and change. And yet, if the air itself can carry memory, what might we discover if we listened differently? What secrets could drift upon the breeze, waiting to be heard beneath the quiet rustle of leaves and the soft exhale of the world? And yet, if the air itself can carry memory, what might we discover if we listened differently? What secrets could drift upon the breeze, waiting to be heard beneath the quiet rustle of leaves and the soft exhale of the world? As we move from the invisible breath of atmosphere to the solid bed of fossils hidden in deep time, we find stories carved into the bones and shells of vanished life, echoes of existence written in stone, whispers of worlds that once breathed, walked, or swam beneath ancient skies. Fossils are more than relics. They are time capsules, the vestiges of once living forms preserved by Earth's patient embrace. Every bone and shell holds the story of a moment caught in stasis, a frozen fragment of deep time. But which moments, and which lives? What traces do we miss when the soft tissues, the fleeting thoughts, and the spaces in between vanish without a trace? Fossilization is both gift and betrayal. It remembers some things and forgets others. The great extinction events punctuate Earth's history as brutal shifts of life and death, erasing many species, leaving others to rise anew. Yet in these great pauses, might there also be the fading of civilizations, not just biology? Could the layers holding fossils of creatures lost also hold the subtle imprints of minds and cultures forever vanished? These are shadows in stone, the archaeology of life's unseen companion intelligence. We consider how entropy patiently erodes form and matter, how the passage of deep time unravels even the most steadfast of monuments. The fossil record is uneven. It is a patchwork quilt of survival and loss, sewn by forces that neither favor nor condemn, only persist. What is fossilized is shaped by chance, by circumstance, by the chemistry of decay and preservation. In the spaces left behind lie questions that stretch far beyond bones, the enigma of presence and absence, of memory preserved and memory lost. Could consciousness itself, that luminous spark in a vast dark sea, leave traces beyond the physical? Might there be fossil silences, records of thought preserved not in bone but in altered chemistry, in strange mineral arrangements, in isotopic clues that whisper of lived experience? Just as sound leaves reverberations, could intelligence imprint subtle marks on the geological canvas, waiting patiently for discovery? The patient Earth slowly reshapes everything, folding past into present, presence into absence. It carries the possibility that what we consider lost is only transformed, perhaps hidden in plain sight. The slow rhythms of geology invite us to expand our sense of what fossilization might mean, embracing mystery and the unknown. And so we hold space for wonder, sitting quietly with the stones that tell their stories, listening not just for what is there but for what is missing. For in the soft language of fossils and silence, there lies a meditation on deep time and deep mystery. We are part of a vast unfolding connected not only to life's forms, but to its elusive, flickering memory. And yet, if the fossil record speaks so softly, what else might it be quietly trying to say, just beyond the reach of our hearing? And yet, if the fossil record speaks so softly, what else might it be quietly trying to say, just beyond the reach of our hearing? We turn now to the slow decay of radioactive elements, the patient ticking of uranium and thorium deep within the earth. These ancient clocks mark time with quiet certainty, but sometimes concentrate in unexpected places, clues that hint at processes older and stranger than simple geology. Radioactive isotopes have long been our guides to deep time, their decay rates steady and unchanging, a rhythm as reliable as the slow turning of the planet itself. Yet in certain deposits, concentrations of uranium appear unusually high, challenging our understanding of natural formation. Could these be leftovers of nuclear processes, natural or otherwise, tracing flames of power wrought in epochs long past? We imagine a world where nuclear fires burned not just in stars but beneath the surface of Earth, where ancient hands may have harnessed atom and energy in ways lost to memory. Could there be veins of isotopic memory, signatures of power stations or experiments performed when time itself looked different, when the Earth was still young in ways we can barely conceive? This thought invites a profound humility. The idea that energies we now wield might have been glimpsed, tested, or buried long before we held the tools. The Earth's crust folds and shifts, swallowing evidence beneath mountains and mantle, erasing more than just the physical shapes of cities or machines. Its stories are chemical, atomic, the faintest whispers preserved in mineral shadows. And yet, how to discern these voices amidst the natural noise? How to know if the strange concentrations are chance, a quirk of geology, or the lingering hum of something intentional? Our instruments strain to decode these signals, their patterns of decay, a kind of Morse code from the deep past. We must listen not just with science but with wonder, embracing the possibility that our history might be far richer, more complex than we dare imagine. These isotopes are both markers and mysteries, their presence a puzzle written in the language of atoms. Maybe not. Perhaps the Earth herself remembers fires lit by ancient minds, energies folded into rock and mineral, waiting in patient silence, waiting for us to learn how to read their slow, steady stories. And yet, if such power once flickered here, what else might remain hidden in the deep pulse of the planet? What other quiet signals might the Earth be sending, fading slowly into the vastness of time? And yet, if these mineral geometries have secrets to share, what stories might they tell about the architects of deep time? What wisdom might lie hidden in their perfect, patient patterns, waiting for minds curious enough to discern their message? As we move from mineral patterns to the layered language of sedimentary rock, we find the quiet archives of Earth's memory, the storybook of layers built through eons, each page inscribed with the chemical and physical signatures of worlds long vanished. Every stratum is a whisper from the past, a record patiently assembled as mud and sand settled in ancient seas, rivers, and skies. These layers overlap and fold, a complex manuscript written not with pen but with the slow sedimentation of particles, each telling a fragment of deep history. What if embedded within these layers are the coded outlines of civilizations lost, messages in the mineral dust of ages, archives not of parchment but of permanence? The Earth writes its own history in these sedimentary volumes, capturing shifts in climate, chemistry, and life through complex isotope ratios and fossilized vestiges. Yet could some of these stratifications be more than natural record? Could the rhythmic layering hold the echoes of deliberate design, subtle but persistent, left by minds skilled in the art of deep time? We imagine the sediment as a vast ledger, each grain a word, each layer a paragraph, some inscribed with the gentle scars of life, and perhaps others etched by human or pre-human hand. Might lost civilizations have shaped the very sediments, leaving behind a history folded into rock, waiting patiently to be deciphered? Patterns emerge in the sediment, the subtle shifts in isotope composition, the delicate changes in mineral content that hint not only at environmental shifts, but at activity of unknown origin. Are these the fossilized footprints of ancient industries, the chemical echoes of deep ecological interventions, or simply the natural rhythm of fire, flood, and decay? The sediment whispers, but the language remains elusive. This layered memory is subject to continual change, rewritten by erosion, uplift, and subduction. The Earth's crust is fluid on geological scales, and with each tectonic movement, chapters are erased, pages folded, texts buried deep beneath newer stories. Yet even in this constant rewriting, fragments endure, invisible footprints beneath mountains, chemical inklings in ancient seabeds. And so we listen, turning the pages of stone, allowing the layers to unfold slowly, patient readers of a language older than words, more voluminous than the grandest library. Perhaps these sedimentary stories hold not just evidence of life, but stitched into them, the faint pulse of vanished civilizations, a global memory archive waiting in shadow for rediscovery. And yet, if the sedimentary layers are a manuscript of unimaginable breadth, what might be lost between the folds, crushed beneath the weight of time and earth, waiting silently for us to notice? And yet, if the sedimentary layers are a manuscript of unimaginable breadth, what might be lost between the folds, crushed beneath the weight of time and earth, waiting silently for us to notice? We now drift into the depths of the oceans, where the slow dance of sediment and current writes another chapter in Earth's quiet memory. The abyssal plains are archives of the planet's past, layers upon layers of particle and life settling in ceaseless patterns beneath waves that have carried stories longer than human history. The deep ocean floor is a place of patient preservation, where the chemical traces of worlds long vanished settle into the mud. Here isotopes record changes in temperature, salinity, and acidity, markers of epochs when oceans thrummed with life or quivered through death. What if beneath these layers lie subtle imprints of intelligence, signatures wrought not by natural tides but by unseen hands, steering currents, shaping chemistry, or managing ecosystems in ways beyond our knowing? Sediments carry fragments of shells, bones, and organic matter, each grain a word in the planet's slow narrative. Signs of climatic shifts interweave with signals of life's resilience and loss. But might they also hold the distant echoes of ancient stewardship? Could some of these layers be the residues of ecological interventions, biogeochemical laboratories from times when minds moved mountains and currents alike? Entropy fades these signs, yet in the patient accumulation of ocean sediments, traces might endure, soft echoes of activities long past, preserved in chemical gradients and isotopic shifts. To listen to the deep ocean's archive is to hear a lullaby of change and continuity, a vast silence folding birth and decay into one. In these unseen depths, memory takes form in peculiar ways, not in monuments or manuscripts, but in the dance of molecules and minerals, in the layering of sediments that resist dissolution, in the slow folding of oceanic memory beneath the waves. What if the depths offer not just a resting place for the dead, but a cradle for secrets, where the archive of lost civilizations slips beyond time's grasp? Are we near enough to hear these layers, or does their silence stretch too far, echoing across an abyss we have yet to understand fully? And so we float with the ocean's slow heartbeat, drawn into the profound humility of waiting, waiting for whispers carried on currents, for sedimentary stories that shift beneath our notice, for ancient voices hidden beneath water and time. And yet, if these oceanic memories hold such power, what other secrets might be cradled in the abyss, patiently waiting for us to invite them into the light? And yet, if these oceanic memories hold such power, what other secrets might be cradled in the abyss, patiently waiting for us to invite them into the light? The universe tells its story through entropy, that slow unraveling, the gentle fading of order into disorder, a constant dance where all things flow and fade. Yet life is the rebellion within this dance, a tender surge of order against inevitable decay, an echo of complexity born from simplicity. Entropy is the ever-present background hum of the cosmos, yet here on Earth, life and perhaps even civilizations find ways to weave order and meaning from this roaring silence. Could ancient intelligences have learned to work with entropy, to sculpt patterns that endure longer than we imagine, preserving echoes of themselves like distant stars glowing softly through the dark? We imagine civilizations not merely as bursts of creation and collapse, but as ongoing negotiations with the chaos of entropy, life and mind resisting the dissolving forces, finding moments of balance, creating forms that speak across deep time. Could some patterns we see in geology, in mineral arrangements, or in isotopic shifts be the footprints of this dance, signs of intelligent resistance ingrained in stone? The slow decay of monuments, the erosion of cities, and the ultimate return to dust do not signify just an end, but a transformation into new forms, new stories. Entrenched in entropy's embrace, could some artifacts become part of a planetary memory, woven into the cycles of decay and renewal, a metamorphosis rather than destruction? Listening to these rhythms invites us to reconsider the meaning of persistence and loss, not because entropy is simply annihilation, but because it also contains the seeds of regeneration and memory. The Earth itself may be an artist painting with fading colors, reshaping what was into the promise of what might be. Could humanity's own legacy be part of this vast dialogue with entropy, our creations folded into the slow transformation of matter and memory? Might our actions echo not just in the immediate, but ripple gently through the fabric of entropy, shaping distant futures in ways we cannot yet perceive? And yet, entropy teaches humility, reminding us that all forms, no matter how grand, are fleeting. It leaves us with questions that expand like galaxies. What if our story is part of an eternal unfolding, one that loops in and out of presence and oblivion? What if the very fabric of time is stitched with endless cycles of becoming and fading? Maybe not. But in the gentle pulse of entropy's dance, we find a quiet invitation not only to witness decay, but to imagine new orders, to listen for the subtle beats of life and intelligence persisting against the fading dark. And yet, If entropy is both the great eraser and the patient artist, what might it yet reveal about the shapes of civilization long vanished, and those yet to come? And yet, if entropy is both the great eraser and the patient artist, what might it yet reveal about the shapes of civilization long vanished, and those yet to come? We turn now to the quiet spaces between fossils, not the solid forms but the silence that surrounds them. Fossil silences. These are the gaps in the record, the absence that whispers louder than presence, the spaces where memory both lingers and fades. What is a fossil but a trace of being? A memory etched in stone. And what of the memories that leave no bone, no shell, no physical form capable of fossilizing? Could consciousness, that ephemeral dance of impulses and awareness, imprint itself in subtler ways, patterns woven not in flesh but in mineral alignment, isotopic variations, or structures invisible to the eye? We imagine fossil silences as archives of absence, places where the echoes of mind persist in ways we struggle to perceive. Just as sound fades but leaves reverb, might consciousness leave impressions in the geometry of minerals, in the chemistry of sediments, in signatures that science is only beginning to glimpse? The idea of fossil silence challenges our very understanding of presence and absence, of what can be remembered and what must be forgotten. It reminds us that history is not only the story of form but also the story of loss, the shape of forgetting, as much as the shape of remembering. Could it be that some aspects of intelligence and experience fossilize not as objects but as reverberations, subtle shifts in matter and energy that survive the ravages of time, patiently awaiting minds capable of noticing their quiet call? We sit lightly with this thought, allowing the mystery to unfold without demand, holding the silence as a place of potential rather than emptiness. Fossil silences speak in the language of deep time's slow breathing, in a rhythm that is felt more than heard, a meditation on the fragility and persistence of memory itself. And yet, if fossil silences are real, how might we begin to listen? What tools, what openness of wonder must we cultivate to uncover the gentle truths hiding in the pauses, the breath spaces of deep time? Could these silences be the key to understanding the identities and perceptions of worlds gone before, and perhaps those yet to come? And yet, if fossil silences are real, how might we begin to listen? What tools, what openness of wonder must we cultivate to uncover the gentle truths hiding in the pauses, the breath spaces of deep time? We now shift our gaze to the vast weight of deep time itself, to the slow, undeniable pressure exerted by the earth as it folds and compresses its ancient stories into stone. Mountains rise, continents collide, and sediments harden under forces both gentle and immense, transforming all they touch. Pressure and time transform matter, changing coal to diamond, sediment to sandstone, memories to stone. Could this metamorphosis compress entire civilizations into forms unrecognizable, folding stories into mineral hearts, disguising artifacts as rock itself? What secrets might be hidden beneath this immense pressure, beyond sight but present in the rearranged molecules, faint echoes of lives and technologies lost to geological transformation? The Earth's crust is a sculptor, patient beyond measure, remaking history not with haste but with slow fidelity. Beneath great weight, familiar forms dissolve, replaced by structures resilient enough to endure the ages. Could minerals impart to us a tale of civilizations folded into the Earth's deepest layers, their legacies encoded in crystal lattices and compressive forces? We imagine the immense patience required to read such records, a discipline of time and observation, where the geological lens reveals not just natural history, but perhaps the deliberate handiwork of minds, unlike our own. Could the pressure of deep time be both veil and revelation, obscuring and preserving in a single slow act? Mountains wear down, valleys fill, and the Earth's surface reshapes tirelessly, yet through it all the mineral memory persists. What stories are squeezed from forgotten cities, hidden beneath shifting plates, buried deeper than sunlight or human curiosity dare reach? Might these tales be written not in words, but in the silent arrangement of atoms compressed beyond recognition. In surrendering to the great weight of time, we confront our own fleeting moment, humbled by the quiet transformation of all that we build and love. Yet this pressure evokes possibility of endurance in subtle forms, of knowledge preserved not in monuments, but in the resilient folds of stone. And so we turn our attention to the patient earth, its vastness, a reminder that history is not only the record of what is visible, but also of what is hidden, transformed, and waiting silently beneath layers forged by pressure and time. And yet, if the earth folds civilizations within its crust, what might these mineral histories reveal? What whispers might the stone bear if we learn how to listen? And yet, if the earth folds civilizations within its crust, what might these mineral histories reveal? What whispers might the stone bear if we learn how to listen? The chemistry of matter dances quietly beneath our feet, the subtle arrangements of isotopes, the gentle shifts in elemental composition, the unseen signatures encoded in the very fabric of rock. These chemical voices hold stories beyond the reach of sight, delicate testimonies to atmospheric change, great fires, and transformations wrought by forces both natural and perhaps once designed. The air we breathe carries echoes of long-ago worlds, their signatures folded into carbon and oxygen isotopes that scientists now measure with ever finer precision. Could these shifts be more than climate's natural rhythms? Could they be the faint signatures of energy used, of atmospheres altered by beings who lived and labored in epochs now lost beneath time's veil? We imagine a slow, subtle chemical conversation, a planetary memory written in molecules, recording beginnings and ends, expansions and collapses, the rise and fall of forms both living and possibly sentient. These whispers are fragile, always in danger of being overwritten, eroded, or masked by later histories. And yet, they persist, a hidden current beneath the visible layers of our world. The science of isotope geochemistry invites us into these silent stories, allowing us glimpses into ancient atmospheres and the subtle fingerprints of change. Could shifts in carbon isotopes tell of vast fires or synthetic emissions? Might oxygen ratios hint at changes wrought not only by natural forces, but by conscious acts? And we wonder, could some of these chemical signatures be the last murmurs of civilizations long vanished, encoded in the air, the rock, the ice, the breath of a planet shaped by life and thought? What if the very air we take for granted holds not only the memory of Earth's natural cycles, but the breath of its lost histories? And yet, how do we discern these faint chemical voices from the chorus of nature's ever-changing song? Could the answers reside not only in instruments, but in a mindset open to the wonder and mystery of planetary memory, a patient ear tuned to the slow rhythms of deep time? Maybe not. But in these invisible chemical songs, we find a meditation on connection between life and planet, past and present, human and Earth itself. And as we begin to listen differently, we are invited to wonder what other secrets might be breathing quietly all around us, waiting for us to hear their ancient language. And yet, as we begin to listen differently, we are invited to wonder what other secrets might be breathing quietly all around us, waiting for us to hear their ancient language. We imagine now the final acts of civilizations long gone, the last laboratories of lost knowledge, where minds sought to capture the world's mysteries before fading into silence. These laboratories were not merely rooms or buildings, but experiments stretched across landscapes and epochs, efforts to encode wisdom into lasting forms, to preserve understanding against the tides of oblivion. Could there have been last, desperate attempts to write messages into stone, to etch knowledge into atmosphere, to fold thoughts into the very fabric of matter? Imagine the subtle codings hidden in mineral deposits, the faint isotopic signatures left in ancient ice, cryptic notes composed by hands and minds that knew they might not endure. These final experiments, woven into the textures of earth and air, might not be legible as stories, but could be present as riddles, waiting encoded across scales and substances, inviting future minds to unravel their secrets. Could these be the technofossils of thought, the faintest traces of intelligence lodged in deep time's ledger, we ponder how knowledge itself might fossilize, not just as artifacts or ruins, but as resonances in matter, faint vibrations in the mineral lattice, or subtle shifts in elemental patterns. This view broadens our understanding of what legacy means, embracing forms of memory more abstract, more elusive, yet no less profound. The patient Earth, in its slow reworking of crust and atmosphere, becomes a living archive, a custodian of these final whispers. What might these last laboratories tell us about the ambitions, fears, and hopes of those who came before? Could they hold clues about how civilizations understand their place in time and their own impermanence? And as we imagine these encoded memories, we see ourselves in a long chain of beings who seek to make meaning, to leave a mark, to create something that will whisper back through the ages. Each generation is both student and scribe in this unfolding story, learning from the quiet experiments that preceded it, and adding its own notes in careful, if fragile, inscription. Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps the final chapters of civilizations are not grand monuments, but delicate sketches, folded into the very elements themselves, waiting for patient curiosity, for gentle listening, to unlock their stories. And yet, if these last laboratories exist, scattered across forgotten epochs and unnoticed by the busy present, what might they teach us about how to live with time's vastness, how to preserve knowledge amidst inevitable forgetting, and how to find meaning in both presence and loss? And yet, if these last laboratories exist, scattered across forgotten epochs and unnoticed by the busy present, what might they teach us about how to live with time's vastness, how to preserve knowledge amidst inevitable forgetting, and how to find meaning in both presence and loss? We shift our gaze to the vastness of mountain ranges, those silent giants rising and falling in the slow breath of deep time. These towering formations are not simply monuments of stone, but might themselves be archives of ancient will and intention. Mountains grow and crumble through relentless cycles of uplift and erosion, their very forms shaped by forces both brutal and patient. Could some be more than natural sculptures? Could they be the residual structures of civilization-scale projects, shaped by minds that worked with Earth's raw materials on a scale that dwarfs our own? We walk among these endless stone halls and wonder if their shapes might hold faint echoes of design, folded into their folds, waiting for us to recognize the hand that moved through deep time. Their peaks and valleys pulse with history, the scars of collisions so fierce they fold rock back upon itself, the traces of quiet rivers carving delicate patterns over millennia. Could these features be not only geological but cultural artifacts, signs of intelligence embedded in the landforms so old they have become indistinguishable from the natural rhythm of Earth's shaping? As mountains wear down, their stones return to the earth, becoming the dust and clay of new landscapes. In this recycling, there is both loss and renewal, a metaphor for memory itself, forever transforming but never entirely disappearing. The mountain's collapse into sediment is a slow surrender, a letting go that cloaks what was once towering in the soft embrace of earth. We consider how these natural processes might conceal the grand gestures of civilizations lost to time, vast constructions, terraces, or mineral arrangements, repurposed by the patient hand of geology. What if the mountain's rhythm is a slow pulse of memory, a cryptic message composed in stone and silence? These stone giants also remind us of our own smallness, our fleeting moment atop their aged shoulders. But within this humility lies a quiet invitation. What if the mountains themselves are storytellers, their voices reaching across epochs, teaching us to listen with patience and reverence? Maybe, maybe not. Yet in their silence and their permanence, mountains offer a meditation on endurance and impermanence, presence and absence, the interplay of memory and forgetting that shapes our world. And yet, if these giants are the sleeping archives of deep time waiting to be awakened, what stories might they tell us about the civilizations that have shaped and been shaped by this ancient earth? And yet, if these giants are the sleeping archives of deep time waiting to be awakened, What stories might they tell us about the civilizations that have shaped and been shaped by this ancient earth? The question folds gently back upon itself, inviting us to peer deeper, to listen longer, to let curiosity be our guide through the tangled shadows of time. Each revelation opens another door, a portal into worlds layered beneath our own. Histories are never linear. They move in spirals, loops, echoes. What if the memory of vanished civilizations is not lost but transformed, folded into the planet's ongoing story? The Earth is a living memory, breathing in cycles of growth and decay, preserving not only physical traces but the very resonance of being. The silence of deep time is filled with murmurs, subtle signals encoded in rock, air, and ice. These signals challenge our understanding of what history means and how memory endures beyond the fragile forms of flesh and stone. Could the echoes of civilizations past be etched into the very processes that sustain life and change the face of the planet? As we stand at the edge of this vast unknown, we are reminded of a profound humility. Our place is small, our time brief, and our grasp on the past tentative at best. Yet this humility opens space for wonder, for the tender unfolding of possibility. Could our search for ancient civilizations be not just an archaeological quest, but a meditation on time itself, a reflection on memory, loss, identity, and the shape of forgetting? Maybe, maybe not. But the Earth invites us to listen, to become patient readers of its layered stories, to find poetry in the spaces between facts, to feel the pulse of narratives vibrating quietly beneath our feet. And yet, if the Earth holds these tales close, if memory is woven through its very being, what might it require of us to truly hear, to see the echoes not as distant curiosities, but as threads weaving us into the ongoing story of life, time, and consciousness? And yet, if the Earth holds these tales close, if memory is woven through its very being, what might it require of us to truly hear, to see the echoes not as distant curiosities, but as threads weaving us into the ongoing story of life, time, and consciousness? The stone beneath us, the dust that swirls in quiet breezes, the silent pulse of the planet, these are not just backdrop, but living chronicles, archives of countless experiments in being. As we listen, we realize the Earth itself may dream, its mineral heart beating slowly with memories older than thought. Its silence is a language formed across eons, speaking not in words but in rhythms and resonances. What if the dust that settles on our eyelashes carries not just particles of rock, but whispers of ages lost, stories of civilizations dissolved into time's vast ocean? We walk through the corridors of forgotten epochs, feeling the weight of silence that is never empty but full of absence and potential, decay and remembrance. The Earth's deep time is not linear but looping, a tapestry woven of reflections and echoes, where the endings fold back into beginnings, and the lost might still be found in the shadow of forgetting. Memory, perception, identity, these ripple through the layers of stone and soil, shaped by the patient forces of geology and the inscrutable passage of time. Could the Earth itself hold a form of planetary memory, a consciousness encoded in isotopes, fossils, and mineral structures? These are speculations, gentle and tentative, but they invite a softer way of knowing, a letting go of certainty, and an embrace of wonder. What if the shapes beneath our feet are not just sedimentary, but sentient, not merely history, but living memory? And so we begin to imagine ourselves not as conquerors of nature, but as part of its unfolding story, threads woven through the fabric of enduring mystery. To listen deeply is to enter into a dialogue with time, to hear the language of decay and becoming, to find comfort in the vastness and humility in the unknown. Maybe, maybe not. Yet in this quiet communion with the Earth, we find an invitation to rest within curiosity, to allow the slow turn of geological time to cradle us in its unending cycle of memory and forgetting. And yet, if the Earth dreams, what visions might it hold for those who are patient enough to listen? What stories linger in the dust, waiting for the silence between the stars to carry them home.